Well, the topic of the seminar is, usually this topic is yoga and value education. And here the purpose of understanding yoga in relation with value education is treating yoga as a method of value education. Yoga as a method. And through yoga we are uniting with values. And yoga is relating or uniting with values. And hence Mulya Yoga. Mulya Yoga, Mulya are the values. Mulya is a Sanskrit word for values. And values are those things which we want to realize in our feelings, in our thought, in our consciousness, in our action, in our knowledge. Whatever we want to enjoy, that is called values. So values are what we desire, what we should desire, or values are what we seek through education, what we seek through yoga, what we seek, whatever we seek through yoga, culture and education and so on. Those objects are values, and we want to realize our values. Our personality is built up of values. We are identified with our values. Okay. Our country, our nation, our culture is identified by the values that are followed by that country, nature and so on. So values are important. And what I want to say is that even to understand yoga, even to realize yoga, even the yoga sadhana cannot be completed, yoga cannot be understood without realizing the values associated with yoga. Okay, and that's the reason why it is very important to understand values, and without realizing values we cannot understand either education also. Now the question is, value education is very important, but then this education is, the education is related with values, just as yoga is related with values, education is also related with values. Try to understand what education wants to seek. This is the aim of the education. The way in which education reaches that aim, that is content of the education, and the process or method through which the education wants to realize those aims, that is also full of values. So education is integrally related with values in its aims, that is what it wants to seek. It wants to seek a transformation into the person by what you call culturing the person, by working on the outlooks of the person, on working on the perceptions of the person. Education wants to change the person in the sense that the working on feelings, working on perceptions, working on habits is for preparing the person to realize the higher things. To make the person eligible, one has to work on one's own perceptions, values, habits, character and so on. And this is what education aims at. And this transformation is nothing but the preparation of the personality for realizing the higher values. In other words, in yogic terminology, what I want to say is that in order to realize the objectives of yoga, we have to prepare through sadhana. We have to prepare our body, we have to prepare our habits, we have to prepare our perception, we have to prepare our food habits and so on and so on and so forth. So, and this is what is called education transforms or brings change, conducive change in the personality. And in this way, the question is that education is related with values in its aims, in its content, in its process. Then why value education separately? If education is through and through related with values, okay, then why value education separately is the very important questions. Another very important question is, whatever is the nature of values, how yoga is a best method of realizing the values. I mean, through this seminar, what I want to bring forth, what I want to argue, what I want to put forth is that the value education can be best practiced, or value education can be best realized through yoga. There are many other methods. There are many other methods of value realization. But then the best method is yoga method. And why yoga is the best method is that just as yoga is related with values in aims, in content and process, similarly yoga, just as education is related with values, similarly yoga also is related with values in its aims, in its content and in its process. And that's the reason why the yoga can be the best method of value education. And that's the reason why yoga can prove a best sadhana for realizing. And to realize the objectives of value education, to become one with the value education objectives, this is why I have termed the subject Mulya Yoga. Just as we have Jnana Yoga, we have Karma Yoga, we have Bhakti Yoga, similarly the Mulya Yoga. Something, and this Mulya Yoga means to unite. Uniting with the values, to realize the values, to unite the values. And what for we want to realize, unite with the values? For better life, we want to face the problems of the day-to-day life, to reach the success, to remove the hurdles. For all these purposes, we require internalizing the values. So, for realizing the success, we have to prepare our personality for success in any walk of life. We must have certain qualities in us, and those qualities have to be developed, and on the basis of which we can face the day-to-day problems, we can understand the problems, we can remove the hurdles, antarayas. You might be remembering the word from Yoga Sutra, the antarayas are there. Okay, and those antarayas must be removed. And it is in this way, for the sake of preparing ourselves, becoming eligible, becoming good sadhaka, we have to internalize the values. And in this way, another very important reason is that why we are relating yoga and education is that in yoga there is a similarity. Every yoga, the practice of yoga necessarily involves the internalization of values. Without internalizing the values, you cannot understand, practice yoga, and that's the reason why yoga and values are related. Yoga has a message for the entire dimension of human personality. Yoga has it is said, very famous saying of the Swami Vivekananda, that yoga has a message for body, yoga has a message for mind, yoga has a message for soul. Similarly, value is related with all the dimensions of human personality. The physical, physiological, emotional, psychological, social, religious, moral, and so on. All the personality development is there in value education. So the purposes of yoga and purposes of value education, there is a concurrence, there is a common ground. And this I want to explore, that at every steps or limbs of yoga, there are values, and this theme of value education, value realization, I will be carrying through Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and also through Hatha Yoga, we will be seeing the definitions of yoga. There are values in the definitions of yoga. In yamas and niyamas, there are values. Yamas and niyamas are nothing but values. And asanas also full of values. So also Kriya Yoga. So also Kriya Yoga is nothing but the technique of value realization. Okay, and there are in Hatha Yoga several factors which are nothing but values. So we are going to highlight through this seminar or webinar, whatever it is, workshop, the contribution of yoga towards the development of values. And what are these values? These are the values which constitute good life. It is very important to understand. See, every what you call society, every society has a concept of good life. And this concept of good life comes from its culture. Not only Indian, but every culture has some good values. And the society belonging to that culture wants to realize those values. Not only realize, the method of realizing those values is education. Education is the means, is the institution through which the values of that particular culture, which are considered as aims and ideals of that society, and those values are passed from generation to generation. And the agency through which the values are passed of a particular culture to the further generation, the agency is education. So education is the important agency for transformation of values, for the promotion of the values, for the preservation of the values. The best media, the best means is education. And this is the purpose of education. And in this purpose of education, as a student of yoga, what I want to submit or I want to share is how yoga can help in the transmission of the values, in the understanding of the values, in the realization of the values, because values are not only theoretically understood, but they must be practiced. Values are not taught, but values are caught. And in order to catch the values, in order to become one with values, in order to internalize the values, we are going to use the method of yoga, and this is I call yoganizing. Just as we call up socialization, so also yoganization. So Mulya Yoga is becoming one with values. It is yoging with values. Yoga itself is internalization. So in this way, the contribution of yoga, see, The logic, I'm telling logic behind. If we once understand the logic, then we will be in a better position to implement the yogic techniques towards the realization of value education. Yoga itself is an education. When we call of DY-Ed, this is Diploma in Yoga Education. So the education, the objectives of education are nothing but the ideals of the society. Try to understand the relation between values, education, and yoga. The value, every society, every culture has the values, and those values are transmitted from one generation to another generation by the agency of education. And the aim of education will be to transmit the aims and ideals of the society to the further generation. And in this holy work, in this grand work, how yoga can help, what I want to say is that by doing so, if we are successful in that, we will be widening the applicability of yoga. Yoga is nowadays applied in the realm of therapy. Yoga is applied in the realm of what you call physical education, in the realm of psychology, in the realm of science and cognition, and so on and so forth. When we say yoga has a message, I'm just putting the message of Swami Kovilananji in a little more wider way. Yoga has a message for knowledge. What is value education through yoga is the message of value education can be realized through yoga. So that's the reason why yoga has a message for knowledge, human knowledge. Yoga has a message for human culture. Yoga has a message for human action. Yoga has a message for human emotions. In other words, the purpose of value education is to educate the emotions, to widen the knowledge, deepen the commitment, and in this direction, the yogic precepts, yogic practices can be of immense help. And I would like to work out these implications through this webinar or seminar.